All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get things going here. We're going to begin with our work session. Oh, sorry, before that, we have a few interviews, actually. We have Christine Bishop Chapman, looking to be reappointed to the Canvassing Authority. Christine, come on up.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest in being on it and wanting to continue on it. But if you just want to tell us a little bit about your experience on it and sort of what you see going forward with the Canvassing Authority.
Well, thank you. I have had the pleasure of being on the Canvassing Authority since 2005. So, been there a while and seen a lot of changes, and have worked with a variety of people that I just want to mention because they were all great people, Joe Laffey and Charlie Moffett, and currently we have Helen Rose DeSanto, and then we had Pat Shanley and John Rose. So I've been fortunate to work with some wonderful people. And then, of course, previously working with Dale and, of course, Susan and the whole staff. Just, it's a wonderful place to be. So we've seen a lot of interesting and lots of changes over the years. I was there, I think, probably for our last town financial meeting that we had. And obviously during COVID, we had lots of election changes and ways to make voting accessible to people. And so our role is basically to follow the rules of Rhode Island for elections, along with the great support from the town clerk's office, and Susan.
Excellent. Any questions from members?
No, I'd just say, Christine Chapman, I've watched you on Zoom when we were doing COVID election preparations, a referendum. I mean, the last 4 years, it feels like so much work has been done by the Canvassing Authority under your leadership. I always want to recognize your professionalism, the way that you include all voices in discussions, and I just think you're a wonderful asset, and I look forward to supporting your reappointment, and I think you're an outstanding resident and serves this community very, very well. So thank you, and I hope you continue on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb. Any other questions, thoughts? All right, thank you.
Okay.
You should find out
Thank
tonight.
you so much.
All right, next we have Alice Klitschek for appointment as alternate to Assessment Board of Review. And if I mispronounced that, I apologize.
Klezek.
Got it. Alice, welcome.
Thank you.
And if you just want to tell us, why you're interested in joining the Board of Review, and if you've been following it all, sort of what you see going forward with the board.
I was asked by the Mark, the tax assessor, if I'd be interested in being the alternate. I've been in the real estate business for 40 years, all of it here in South Kingstown and Narragansett, 35 of those years living here in South Kingstown. I have attended 2 of their sessions, and I feel that the knowledge I've gained over the last 40 years makes me an asset, hopefully an asset to the Assessors Board of Review.
All right, thank you. Any questions from members?
Thank you for your interest in coming on board. I mean, it's wonderful to have a diverse group of people trying to contribute, so I'm glad that Mark was able to recruit you. So hopefully, good news.
Thank you.
Thankful for your willingness to want to serve, so thank you. And you should find out
Thank you.
hopefully tonight. All right, now we're going to turn to the work session. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Manny, Town Manager, to walk us through the agenda.
Thank you, Council President. We'll go right to licenses 7A. 7A, B, and C are pretty standard licenses. 7A is Monsignor Clark is requesting a new license for an event to be held on September 16th at Monsignor Clark. B is a relay race to be held in South Kingstown on May 19th. It's just pending the DOT approval. On C is a MS ride through Rhode Island on June 10th and 11th. They'll have 350 bikers. There'll be 50 staff working that. Once again, pending the approval of the DOT. D is a temporary mass gathering permit, the Sons of Liberty, an indoor-outdoor event on Saturday, May 27th, and approximately 350 participants could go, and that was vetted and approved by the police chief. We'll go to 8A, which is a public hearing, and this is really a procedural change. So if you look at 8A, but under section C at the bottom, it talks about a change in dates from March 15th to May 15th. That was requested by the tax assessor as a procedural designation to continue this deadline from March 15th to May 15th. And really, it would give them more time to work out the kinks with this new property tax exemption with seniors. 9A is A, B, and C are all requests to reconsider funding by the town council in the ARPA monies that were allocated a couple of weeks ago. A, B, and C. D, I'm going to turn that one over to the solicitor. That's it's a little complicated on this request by the Burrillville Town Council.
So there's been a movement across the country involving states, local municipalities, and also educational institutions to divest, there's the word, to divest from any type of fund that supports fossil fuels, et cetera. The whole idea is that we should be encouraging clean, green energy. So and there's been a bill introduced to do that here in Rhode Island, that we divest from the dirty fuel, so to speak. The Burrillville Town Council is basically saying, hey, if you do that, and as a result, your return on investment is not as good as it could have been, we don't want you coming back to the towns and saying our arc has gotten bigger, and so now you're going to put that burden on our taxpayers. So that's basically, they're basically saying, don't do this unless somehow you can guarantee that we are not going to be the ones holding the bill later. That's what their resolution's all about.
E is a letter of support that is requested, a resolution request by the Warren Town Council in support of the League of Cities and Towns legislative priorities. F.
So I had a question about that. So it's just sort of a generic bulleted list of these priorities. There are some that I do think we might want to support, like local control. I mean, we've talked a lot about the Land Use Commission and some concerns, but it's just a very generic resolution. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it. Okay. So it's sort of a benign thing. It's not, doesn't have enough.
There's no specifics.
Correct. Right? It's just sort of vanilla. That was my take on it. Unless,
Mine as well.
okay.
F is a request by the Warren Town Council in support of a House bill related to taxation, levy, and assessment of local taxes, which would authorize municipalities to offer tax amnesty for a waiver of interest on tangible tax payments. Once again, it's very similar to E.
Do you have any guidance?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any guidance on that one?
The tax assessor's not here, but we do not, my guidance is we do not currently offer a waiver of interest on tangible tax payments, so you'd be supporting something that we currently don't do.
Okay. So possibly putting it on file is the right way to go.
Yes. G, a request has been made by the Armenian National Committee to fly the Armenian flag on April 24th to commemorate the Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. And we've run into this issue in the past because we have one pole here, so this would have to be flown at the police station, public safety complex.
So Patty and Mike, you might not know that we get a lot of requests for flags, for different things, for pride and things like that. And because we only have one flagpole, we can't do it at town hall. People get very upset. I think we actually have a flag policy, do we not, Mike?
Yes, we do.
So, just so you, it will come again, this comes forward, so we will make lots of friends again. So, just letting you know.
Only one that we have here is for the American state flag, so, just so you know.
H is the Hopkinton Town Council is requesting support of a House bill, an act related to human services, medical assistance, on requesting that the House increase the Medicaid reimbursement rates for ambulance and wheelchair van services. They are a volunteer department, so that is applicable to them. That would not be applicable to us because we have a full-time EMS department. So you'd be supporting something that would not affect us here in this town.
But I do think it's a good show of support because they just want the same reimbursement rate for a Medicaid run as they get from the Medicare run. So, I don't know. It sounded like,
5%? Is that what it is? They provided a statute as an addendum.
so, I kind of, even though it doesn't apply, I would want to support them.
That it? Okay. Under the town manager's report, the school building committee, this will be a quick update on that. We've had 2 meetings in the past 2 weeks. They had a meeting on the Saturday as a work session to go over some of the designs of the schools, get some input from the town. The big question now is tonight, because the school building committee took a vote on the best possible date that the bond question would be on the ballot, and they agreed to November 7th, but obviously that's up to the town council. So in previous conversations with the council, it was either going to be October 3rd or November 7th for the referendum for the school bond, and November 7th would give the school building committee and the school committee and everyone involved more time to get that on the ballot. So, not on the ballot, to get stage 2. So, their request is November 7th. The South Road school property, that request was made by Councilwoman Bergner to have an update on that, on where this property stands. And Director Luke Murray will go over that at the appropriate time in the town manager's report. He did all the research on it, but really, it answered the questions I had. Who had ownership? Are there any restrictions on that property that it could be sold? The size of the property, the potential for future uses of the property, the possibilities, and the cost to keep it open or closed. What does it cost right now? So that he has a spreadsheet that he could provide to you once he gets up and gives that that briefing. The third thing I have on the town manager's report is the reorganization of the agenda. I've been here nearly 11 months now, and there's certain things on the agenda that I'm bringing it to the council for your, not tonight, you're going to look at this for the next couple of weeks, but I'm just giving you an idea of some of the things that we possibly could propose, and we'll discuss it, and obviously it's up to the town council whether they want to make any changes at all, and if so, which ones. But one of the things I noticed in the time I've been here, it's happened a couple of times where the meetings went very late, and we were doing some of the most important town business that we have, which is our new business allocation of monies and so forth, right at the end. For example, there was a recent meeting where new business got started at 11:24 and ended with the last director at 11:55. So there's many reasons that, you know, it's a long night. A lot of thought should be given to new business, especially with the amount of money that we're allocating in contracts and so forth. But also, quite honestly, the directors, they sat here all night. And one in particular sat from 7 to midnight, was up for 2 minutes, and that was it. So I think that those are just one of the things I want you to look at. If you have any questions, once you look at this, you could, we'll discuss it at a work session, but this way you have a preview of what some of the stuff we're looking at. This right here is a template of what it could be. So just take a look and make some notes, and we can discuss this further.
May I say something? Do you have more, do you have more in your report?
No, I don't.
Are you done with, are we done?
The town manager's report, I'm done, yes.
Is there more on? Okay. I can go, I'll wait.
Okay. 11, comments from interested citizens. That was one of the requests that made it in here a little quicker, but public comment, I think, is more applicable. I think it's a more appropriate term to call it public comments, but you'll see that as well in the template, in case you see the change right now. 12 is the appointments. New business, 13. We need to purchase a stretcher not to exceed about $27,691. The chief of EMS, and put that request in. These are the type of stretchers that will prevent a member of EMS getting a back injury. Instead of picking them up, they have hydraulics on them. So I would highly recommend that you pass that. 13B, the Judicial Case Management Systems, which is JCMS. It's an online payment system, hardware, setup, training. We really need this for a municipal court. This will be critical to the success of the court. So we're requesting, exclusive service not to exceed $30,000 for a 3-year term for that software. Then 13C is is specifically to the $125 million bond, school the referendum, the bond. We're going to have the bond council here tonight. They're currently in East Greenwich attending the first agenda item there, and then they're coming here. That's why we put it right at the end.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. No, I have a couple questions. So one is, do you have a status on the Land Use Commission and any of that land use legislation that we've been discussing in the past?
I don't.
I don't have any updates either.
Okay, so could we just pay attention and make sure? Okay. Second thing, I know we had talked at the budget meeting, it feels like, was that just last week? It feels like it was a year ago. So we talked about putting together a resolution to support free breakfast and lunch. I forget the name of the bill, but I have been so busy with my personal life that I didn't have time to write the email. So can we do I need to add it for discussion, that we get a resolution for the next meeting, or is it just going to sort of happen because we talked about it last week? Is there a
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. The next thing, it was crazy late, and we were doing the ARPA funding, and I made an error about Kingston and Union. One asked for Scott Packs, the other one asked for the washer. So I just wanted, whatever we allocated, I think we said 75,000. One of them wanted 90, and one of them wanted 25. If we could just use that, yes, whatever that is, proportionately allocate the 75,000 partially towards the Scott Packs and partially towards that gear washer. That's what I meant, but it was not a good, we were so tired, so.
I think that was all of our intents.
Right, but we made a mistake, and I kept saying just the Scott Packs, and it really was the other thing too, the gear washer. So do we need a official thing on that?
So obviously, that's not on the agenda this evening. So
Okay,
you'd have to add it to the agenda, but you can't have a vote on it.
Okay.
So, but if, again, if there was a consensus at the last meeting, I think the manager can pick up on that.
Does everyone feel like that's kind of what we meant when we were giving them money, even though it was, I just kept saying Scott Pax? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you all.
And just to clarify the record, I recused myself on that entire discussion, so I'm staying out of it.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, and then in terms of the ARPA funding, just in general, we had a number of requests. We'll talk about them, I guess, when they come up.
All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll take about a 5 to 6 minute recess before we start at 7:30.
Judge Haiganush Bedrosian. Heige. Yeah, she's probably very old. She's very old. You mean with Lincoln Almond?
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get things underway here. Today is Monday, March 27. We are here for our regularly scheduled town council meeting. And first order of business, as always, is pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land in which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next is the roll call, if you would, Susan.
Thank you. Council President McEntee,
Here.
Council Vice President Marin,
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner,
Here.
Councilwoman Alley,
Here.
Councilwoman Rose.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. It's going to move us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve 5A, B, and C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes unanimously. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. It's going to bring us to 7 licenses. A is a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Monsignor Clark School of Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, for the Taste and See event to be held on Saturday, September 16, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. outdoors on the school grounds, subject to administrative approvals. Application by Sarah Marshall. Sarah, if you're here, I invite you to come on up. Or if anyone is here on behalf of Monsignor School for this item, I invite you to come on up. All right, Susan, have we heard from the applicant? Okay. All right, we'll move on and we'll hopefully come back to it when she gets in here. All right, we're going to move to item B, a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct a portion of the Ragnar Relay New England and South Kingstown on Friday, May 19, 2023, at 12:30 p.m. to Ragnar Events, LLC, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town and Rhode Island Department of Transportation approval. Application by Amber Sadler and Julia Bullard. Either of those parties are here. Invite to come on up. Oh, sorry, right over this podium.
My name is Mark Knoyer. I'll be representing Ragnar this evening on behalf of Amber Sadlier. We're just looking, this is our 3rd year doing this event through this area, and so we're just here to answer any questions you might have. We'll be using the same route we've used in past years. I have paperwork here that explains the route and everything for your review, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. You maybe want to just talk about the route a little bit, how people maybe sign up to do it, things like that.
Yep, so basically it is a 200-mile relay race that starts in Groton, Connecticut, and will be ending in Quincy, Massachusetts. Ragnar Relay, Inc. runs these types of races all over the country. I've been running them myself since 2010, and have been working part-time with the company, helping on race crews for almost that same amount of time. So I've worked with these races many, many times. I've actually worked with this race myself the last 2 years that it's come through here, and I live in Connecticut myself, so I'm actually a local resident as well. Basically, we are looking this year at about approximately, we're permitting for about 160 teams, but when I spoke with Amber earlier today, we're looking at about 135 to 140 teams this year, so it's a relatively small number, and those teams are spread out throughout. The first group of teams starts at 5 in the morning and goes till 11:30 in the morning, so it's not like 160 teams are running through your town at any given time. They are spread out over the course of a period of time. So at any one time, you'll have about 40 to 70 vehicles coming through your area. Basically, it'll be following through up along the coast, along Route 1 and local roads through the area. It'll be coming up through Charlestown, into North Kingstown, on to Narragansett. We have gotten approval from Charlestown and Narragansett already, so we're good to go there. The route will be the same. We do have, for all our exchanges where runners change, where they change runners, we do have volunteer leaders that coordinate and oversee all of those stations at the entire time the race is going through this portion of the course. And we also have coning and safety is our number one priority. So there's one section where they do run along Route 1, but it is on the shoulder and it is all coned off, and we have traffic safety that is handling all crossing. They're not crossing the width of Route 1, they're just crossing where all those little turnoffs go, but we do have flaggers that are at all those intersections to make sure people are crossing safely and everything. So we do, Ragnar will handle, we also have people like myself that are on course the whole time. We drive around and make sure everything stays safe, check in with all those, make sure runners are safe, and check in with those exchanges regularly throughout the race, so monitoring safety. We will be providing all of the porta potties, which will be dropped and picked up. We handle garbage removal and any other issues that might arise. Are there any other questions I can answer for you?
Oh, this is a great race and it's been done a bunch of times.
Yeah, this is the third time
Amazing.
we've done this course, so.
It's cool.
And it's the same exact course as we've used the last few years, so there's really no major changes.
All right, do I hear a motion on this item?
Motion to approve item 7B.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, it's going to move us to item C, a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct a portion of the annual MS Ride the Road on June 10 and June 11, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. to the National MS Society, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town and Rhode Island Department of Transportation approval. Application by Andrew Davis and Samantha Boland. If either of those parties are here, invite to come on up.
Hi, good evening. I'm actually Maura Bouchard. I work with Andrew and Samantha, and I'm just here on behalf of Bike MS Ride the Road tonight.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thanks.
You want to just tell us a little bit about the event? This is an opportunity to sort of market it.
All right, sounds good. So Bike MS Ride the Road is part of the National Bike MS fundraising series. So we have rides across the country. This one here in Rhode Island, this is going into our 36th year riding. It's a fundraiser for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. So ultimately, the funds raised during this weekend will go to help support our mission, which is to ultimately find a cure for multiple sclerosis. So our goal for this ride is to raise $325,000, and we are expecting to see about 300 riders this year.
Awesome.
And I'll throw in there too really quick, we do have, over the 2 days, riders have their choice. On Saturday, they can ride 40, 75, or 100 miles, and on Sunday, they get back on their bikes, do it all over again, and they have their choice on Sunday of 35 or 75 miles. It's a long weekend.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion on this item?
Motion to approve item 7C. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Thank you.
opposed? No? All right, that passes. Good luck.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right, it's going to move us to item D, a resolution granting a temporary mass gathering permit to Sons of Liberty Spirits Company to conduct an indoor-outdoor event with live music and food trucks on Kingstown Road, Wakefield, on Saturday, May 27, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. Application by Brian Ricard. Brian, come on up.
How's it going?
Good.
So, after a 3-year hiatus, Sons of Liberty is officially reopening their tasting room. And May 27th is now going to serve, hopefully, as our grand reopening. So pretty similar to all our past events, very similar to the one we held last October with the food trucks and the music outside. The main difference being that we will have 3 separate rooms inside open as well. So it won't be as chaotic looking as before, and capacity won't be an issue.
Excellent. Any questions for Brian from members here?
I'm excited for the tasting room because a
Better be
lot of
there.
people have asked, when's it coming back?
It's coming back.
This will be a great event. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
The event in the fall was terrific.
Thank you very much.
All right. Do I hear a motion on this one?
Motion to approve item 7D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passed unanimously. Good luck, Brian.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's going to bring us to 8, public hearing. It is a public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the Town Code, Chapter 17, Taxation, as follows. Chapter 17, Taxation, Article 3, Property Tax Exemptions for Elderly Persons. Section 17-44, Amount of Exemption, Filing of Applications. Subsection C, all applications will be filed with the tax assessor by May 15 of each year for which the tax credit is claimed and shall be made in the form approved by the Town Council. All applications filed after the May 15 deadline, if approved, will receive a tax credit in the form of an abatement. Jim, I don't believe the tax assessor is here tonight.
No, sir, he's not. This is a procedural request to extend the deadline from March 15th to, amended to May 15th. The reasons are, once the applications are accepted and received after that March 15th deadline, it would allow the staff to have ample time to process all the applications. It would just give the tax assessor's office, another reason is it clarifies when a qualified applicant files past the deadline, a tax credit will still be applied in the form of an abatement. So it really just gives the tax assessor's office a couple extra months to play catch-up and include as many people as possible.
All right, thank you, Jim. Now, this is a public hearing. At this time, I'm going to open it up specific to this item. So if you wish to speak on this one, I invite you to come on up. Just ask first that you introduce yourself. And we'll try to limit you to 3 minutes if you can.
My name is Martha, and I have a program list that I got at the South Kingstown Senior Center, and I'm just wondering, is the amount going to be the same as what we received back, I think, on January? I think it was January 23rd or January 11th. I can't remember. I'm just curious. Us old people certainly could use some help. Now, I am a prime example of what happened that threw my finances into a turmoil. Many of us old people, not maybe as old as I, but we were thrown out of our jobs. This is my experience, and it throws a good paying taxpayer in a turmoil. This can be the salvation of me still living here. I know everybody says, oh, well, you can sell your house and go somewhere else. Well, just this week, I found out what Brightview is doing, including taxes, $6,000 a month. Now, some people may be rich. I'm not rich in money, but I do know that living here has definitely extended my life. And I just hope that this goes through. This is absolutely wonderful. Now, it looks like you all don't have one of these, but I'm going to keep mine. And just help us oldsters. You know, if I live long enough, I might have enough Social Security to continue my life maybe from 86 to 96. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you, Martha. And just to fill you in, it was either the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we increased.
I can't hear too good sometimes.
Oh, sorry. We increased the income levels that are subject to the tax credits to align with the increases from Social Security income at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, so
Did it
Positive.
go up from 43,251, you mean?
Yes, the total gross income must not exceed $45,197 to reflect the increases from Social Security this year. But that, it's like a sliding scale, so it depends how many people live in your household.
I'm interested in just finding out,
So,
is this breakdown the same? I have the breakdown, the last one is from 40,812 to 43,251.
It has gone up since that.
Yep.
And the correct information is on the website, but I don't know if,
When will I get a new one of these?
in the mail, or,
Will it be before, it's not March, it used to be March or April we used to give them, but now it's going to be,
I think that there's a man behind you that can,
oh, wonderful, you're not Mr. Capuano, are you? No, I didn't think,
I'm pinch hitting tonight.
well, wonderful, is it going to be the same? I want to know the percentages on the different amounts.
so
Do you want me to go?
No. I was just going to
Because
answer that.
I will gladly sit down.
No. I was just going to answer that the letters that you have here that you received in prior years, they've been prepared and they are ready to go in the tax assessor's office. One holdup was, again, just making sure the language is correct and what's being done by the council tonight will be reflective in the letter. But they are ready to go and they will be going out very soon.
Okay, so if I zero in on a figure here, let's say, it's not my figure, I don't have a big figure, but anything will help me. If you go, will that change? That's what I'm really interested in, because you see, everything changes secretly. And I want to make sure that that person, that, because there were a few of us there at that senior center, and he handed these all out. This is like gold to me. So this amount might change?
I can't speak to that right now. If I could take down your information, I'll get back to you
Martha,
tomorrow.
Martha,
Oh, I'm pretty busy
We're gonna print you the
tomorrow,
new
going out to
one.
lunch.
Okay.
Okay, but if you,
Martha, we're going to print an updated one for you right now.
oh, wonderful,
see, when you come to a town council meeting, you get treated really specially.
wonderful. I'll sit down now. God bless you all.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you, Martha.
All right.
My brain is okay, but my walking sometimes kind of wobbly. But what are you going to do? You're going to get there too, Rory.
That's right.
All right. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this item?
Thank you so much. Oh,
All right, seeing none. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion on 8A?
Motion to approve item 8A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, I think it's a good change. It's going to allow us to get more people, and that's what we want, the word out, people applying and taking advantage of it. They've been good changes. Thank you, Mark.
Agreed. Agreed.
Saw Martha give a thumbs up, so I think we're in good shape.
It's a good thing. Provides a longer period of time for people eligible to enroll, so that's always a plus. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes unanimously. It's going to bring us to item 9, communications. A is an email dated March 15, 2023, from Jen Ferry, Executive Director, and Kathleen Carlin, Development Director, providing additional information regarding the application by South County Art Association for human service and outside agency grant funding. If Jen or Kathleen are in the audience, I invite you to come on up. All right, seeing that they're not here, this is perhaps something we can refer to our consideration as we consider how to spend the excess monies allotted for human service and outside agencies as part of the APRA funding. Do I hear a motion to that effect? If we agree?
What did you say?
I said, considering that the parties who sent the communication are not here, we could refer this matter to our consideration as we consider how to allot the excess monies in the allotted to human service and outside agencies.
Mm-hmm. So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, just to be clear, of the amounts allotted to human service and outside agencies as part of the ARPA funding, we have a surplus of $61,350, which we will continue to contemplate how to spend going forward. So just to throw that out there.
So we were advised, or I believe we discussed that, we didn't necessarily feel like spending all the money when there could be potential other projects coming down the road. I believe that perhaps Habitat was going to come with something, so I think I was feeling that that was going to happen potentially, so we left the door open so that we could entertain other proposals.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just sort of saying that again for people who might not have, why didn't we spend it all? Why didn't we spend it on X or Y? So that was a housing. I think we seem to prioritize housing.
Yeah, I think, is it time to discuss all of these,
Are we doing A, B, and C?
Oh,
A, B, and C? Just
we're
A,
just
B, and C.
considering the first one.
First one.
We're just saying we'll sort of refer this to our own consideration because the parties.
No, I'm not sure if there are individuals here for the others. You might want to take them one at a time.
Mr. Collins is here. I don't know if Kate's here.
All right, so we do have a motion on the table with respect to item A. We're discussing it at this point. Any further discussion?
We're referring it to staff?
Yes.
Fine. We just have to vote.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No, all right, that passes. It's going to bring us to Communication 9B, a letter dated March 15, 2023, from executive staff of the Johnny Cake Center for Hope requesting that the town allocate $25,000 or more from the remaining American Rescue Plan Act funds for affordable housing initiatives to address emergency housing situations. Kate Brewster, if you're here, I invite you to come on up, or if anyone is here on behalf of the Johnny Cake Center. All right, this one could be a similar motion if we wish.
No, I find, yep. A motion to put item 9B on file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. It's going to bring us to item C, an email dated March 17, 2023, from Mark Collins expressing appreciation for the ARPA grant awarded to the Chris Collins Foundation and providing additional information to support their request for reconsideration of the full funding request. Mark, come on up.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yep.
Now, we received your communication.
Right.
Now, now's your time to sort of talk further on it.
Sure. So in the letter, I kind of reiterated information that I had put in the application, but also wanted to address some of the things I watched at the meeting when you were making decisions. I was out of town. One of the biggest things I think I wanted to reiterate is that the foundation and its peer-to-peer program really impacts the entire town. We're in the schools right now with the mental health program, but obviously we know that mental health affects everybody in town, and when it affects the youth, which this particular program works with, it's then affecting their family, friends, neighbors, everybody in town. So it is a program that really benefits the entire town. One of the things I guess I was curious about as well, and Deb just mentioned it, regarding holding some of the funds for something that might come along down the road. But with this application, there was a deadline and requirements that had to be made, and the application stated that incomplete or late applicants wouldn't be considered for these funds. So I was just, kind of curious as to how or why that decision would be made to hold funds back.
So I feel like if we didn't have enough proposals to take all the money, we shouldn't just give all the money anyway, just because people ask for all the sums, we shouldn't just give out all the sums. We were told that night by, who presented the housing? Jamie? By Jamie Rabbit, who said that he thought that another proposal in the housing section was going to come forward. So given that we feel, and we've talked many times as a group about the importance of creating housing opportunities, how there isn't a lot of housing opportunities of all price points for people to enter housing, whether it's rentals or otherwise, that sounded like a good idea in the moment to go along with that recommendation from staff. So does that help you?
Yeah, but that's on the housing side,
Yep.
the housing bucket, not the human services and outside agency side.
But that's.
So you left money unallocated in both buckets, so to speak?
Right, but the total is 61,000 of it all.
That's
No,
just the amount.
61 in HSOA and 75, I think, in the housing bucket.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
So, Mark, essentially, we looked at a lot of these requests. We heard, obviously, people give presentations with respect to their requests. And we sort of also compared to their history of requests and the use for the monies in the past. Now, some of them came in a little substantially higher than others, and that tended us to sort of, well, should we just sort of give out everything as requested, or should we sort of further consider this as we decide, which ones to allocate and which not? That led us to, some not being funded, some partially being funded, some fully funded, but that leaves us here with a surplus. But that doesn't mean the surplus is necessarily going to be allocated over to housing, even though, because we still have, I think, 75,000 excess there, 61,000 here. We discussed that we're going to have more time to consider what to do with these excess amounts, and I understand some of the decisions we were made with respect to the allocation to you were probably false misunderstandings, and we appreciate you bringing that to us, and definitely going to keep that in mind as we consider how to spend this surplus.
Right.
Appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the other things I mentioned in the email in relation to probably a lot of the requests came in higher than past years, at least, in our situation, the pandemic obviously hindered our ability to fundraise, and also increased dramatically, the need for the program, which is why our ask increased from previous years. And seeing during the application period that you were using the ARPA funds for this particular year and a greater amount, it seemed to make sense that this was a chance to kind of recoup losses and so forth, and certainly wouldn't be the ask in future years, but the ARPA funds created an opportunity for there to be, more help for a lot of the groups that were requesting money.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate the explanation that you're not eligible for ESSER funds. But my question is, and you probably don't know the answer, is why isn't the school department funding this initiative for school children? Like, just logically, why does it have to come through us?
Well,
They have an undesignated fund, they have a fund balance, it's for their students. Those peer-to-peer groups, I've seen them at the school committee meetings, talk about it. Everyone gets it, so happy about it. So why does it come here?
Well, this is just, we try to get funds from a lot of different places, including fundraising. We do a wiffle ball tournament every year with 300 people in the town come out, which is awesome, through businesses and so forth. So the money we ask for from the town is just a portion of it. The money doesn't come from the schools. I don't have a great answer as to why. I think part of our thinking and reasoning why the foundation pays for the program completely is so that we wouldn't ever have to worry about money being cut for the program, which unfortunately, happens with all sorts of money, whether it be it's school money or town money. There, is always concern for how do we pay for everything. So our foundation wanted to take that concern right off the table for the schools with this particular program because it's just, too important to every year worry about, are there going to be funds for it? Where are they going to come from? So as I mentioned, we do a lot of fundraising, we apply for grants, we solicit businesses, so we raise the money for the program so that we don't have to worry about whether or not there would be school funds for it.
Thank you.
I did want to ask a quick question about your letter where you mentioned that the ESSER fund restrictions. It seems to me at some point while I was on the school committee, the ESSER funding regulations were loosened up. Is there any chance that change or there has been a change that might allow you to?
I'm not familiar. I mean, I inquired about whether we would be eligible for ESSER funding and was told probably not because the requirements are very strict. So I didn't pursue it beyond that.
They don't hold me to the time frame. They were stricter at the middle to the end of 21 than they were later. I think the restrictions came in at the end of 21. It might be worth checking.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you about the Nathan Bruno and Jason Flatt Act, which mandates suicide prevention training in the schools for educators. And I'm just wondering if you do anything with that. I noticed that kids in grade 6 now are also supposed to receive that type of training. And if there are funds available for that, or if that's something that you might be able to fill that need in the schools for us.
Right. I'm not sure that there are funds that come along with that act. And I think a lot of that pertains to the staff and the adults in the school getting, whether it's QPR training or mental health first aid training. So what our program does is it works kind of in conjunction with that, where we're training the students to help themselves, so that the basis of the program that we fund from the University of Michigan Depression Center is that peers are more likely to listen to their friends than they are well-meaning adults. So having the adults trained in the schools is essential, but if the kids aren't knowledgeable enough about mental health and mental illnesses, and they're not comfortable enough seeking help, then the adults being trained, doesn't necessarily mean anything. So there are several different things that have to happen to have positive outcomes, and the training at the adult level is one of it, and then the training at the student level is another. So I think as far as schools meeting the requirements from that act, the peer-to-peer program does fulfill part of the requirements at the student level, for sure. But there's not necessarily funding that comes from the state for that. Districts are kind of on their own to get the funding to pay for the trainings.
I recently attended something at the Kingston Congregational Church that was Were you there that night?
Yeah, we were there with several of the peer-to-peer students.
Oh, yeah, they did an awesome job. Yeah. So thank you for that. It was very informative.
Yeah, it was a lot of great information.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, we can't take action on it tonight because it's not on the agenda or such. But
I appreciate the consideration and the questions and the funding so far, so it's very appreciated.
Thank you, Mark.
I still feel 100% that there are allies on the school committee who would work to give you the money, and I would challenge the school committee to match what we matched, and if they give you 12 and a half, come back for the 2.5 that we owe you to get it was 25 that you needed. So I would want, get them to tell them that if they match, we'll match, and barter out, because I do think that they have a fund balance, they have savings that they can use, and this is a priority, and it is a completely school-oriented program. And so you're so kind, and I know you wouldn't play so tough to them, but I would challenge back to say, if this is for the schools, then they really should be at least contributing. I'll go with you.
So definitely continue to seek other sources. We'll take into consideration all that you've given us in the form of email and the testimony you've given us tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll consider it further.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion on this one?
Motion to put item 9C on file.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to all right, we're going to move back to licenses. Item 7A. Resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Monsignor Clark School of Tower Hill Road, Wakefield, for the Taste and See event to be held on Saturday, September 16, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. outdoors on the school grounds, subject to administrative approvals. Application by Sarah Marshall. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. And if you just want to tell us about this event.
Sure, yeah. I am the Director of Admissions and Development at Monsignor Clark. I joined the school back in 2016. It was an event that I was kind of tasked with reconnecting with our alum base, but did not have the benefit of having a very good database to contact everyone. So I created an event. It's a community-wide event where we work with different partners. So Sweeney's is working with us, Sons of Liberty, various businesses, Belmont has worked with us. And not having a budget for this event, I really relied on my community partners. And they come and they donate, their food, their product, their time. They get a venue to showcase their product to about 200 people. Guests purchase tickets. They get a small glass to sample and walk around, so it's not a sit-down type of thing with, a bar. They're just walking around sampling product. So it really has become kind of this classy reunion type gathering. It was really successful. We did it for 4 years, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to take a hiatus for 2 years. So this will be the first time we're bringing it back since then, and everyone seems really excited about that. So it takes place outside on the school grounds. We work with Exquisite Events. We create, the decor. It's lit. It's looks like a fancy wedding reception out there. It's really nice. So I'm happy to answer questions about it. But it is a fundraiser for the school. We don't get any other funding. We're tuition-based. So it's a fundraiser, but it's also an opportunity to bring people back and reconnect in hopes that they will become invested in supporting the school.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions from members? All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 7A.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's going to move us back to communications. Item D, a resolution adopted March 8, 2023 by the Burrillville Town Council concerning environmental, social, and governance investing strategies and the potential effect on the state pension system. Mike Ursillo, we're going to refer to you on this to brief us on this matter.
So a bill has been introduced that would require the state's pension system to divest itself basically from investing in fossil fuel type companies, instead invest in green or clean energy. The bill hasn't passed, it's been introduced. The town of Burrillville has adopted a resolution that they've provided to all the other municipalities, basically stating we don't think this is a good idea if what would happen is that the state pension system doesn't make as much money as it would have made if they hadn't divested from these particular stocks in these industries. And more importantly, if in fact you go forward with this and as a result the state pension system doesn't make as good of a return, we don't want you coming back to the towns and cities saying, make up the difference, meaning the taxpayers are going to have to add to their arc every year to add more money to make sure the pension system has the funds available that it needs. So that's basically what it's all about.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any questions here on this one? Any thoughts?
I think I'd put this item on file.
I agree.
Motion to place item 9E on file.
Second.
D.
9D, sorry.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. That's going to bring us to item E, a resolution adopted February 14, 2023 by the Warren Town Council in support of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns 2023 legislative priorities. We talked a little bit about this one in the work session. Sort of just,
Deb, do you want to repeat what you said in the work session about this? Because I think that gives a good idea of where we're at on it.
So the resolution is a very generic letter of support for the legislative priorities identified by the League. I think things that we are interested and concerned about, for example, the Land Use Commission, there's not really a lot of specifics. This really feels like a generic sort of vanilla support of the League's efforts. I don't have any problem supporting it because it doesn't really take any real positions other than we support what the League is working on for this session. Probably did better in the work session.
all right. So yeah, this does not provide any specifics as to certain priorities. It's generic in nature, so this is something we should likely, it's on file.
No, I think I would be inclined to support it because it's just in a broad brush, general, supporting robust local government funding, we're for that. Opposing any constraints in the ability to raise revenue, we're for that. Opposing any unfunded state mandates, sure, right? So maintaining local control and decision-making, absolutely. I feel like that's something that we care about a lot. And then supporting greater flexibility with local government to innovate, improve efficiency and safety. I think it's good, it's just very generic, just a note.
All right.
I don't have any problem moving it forward.
Do I hear a motion in support?
Or did you want to?
No, I just wanted to comment. I don't care whether it's before or after the motion, but this is similar to the resolution that we dealt with a few weeks ago, where we're being asked to support something without seeing what the legislation is. Without reading a bill, I'm not going to vote for it.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 9E.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just say that when it comes to certain legislation and there's nothing identified as to what we're in support of or not in support of, it's hard for the legislature to sort of take into consideration just sort of general sentiments as to what we support. But I agree with the sentiment that this is getting at, so I can get on board with it. So for that, I'll now ask, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay. All right, that passes 4-1. It's going to bring us to item F, a resolution adopted February 14, 2023 by the Warren Town Council in support of House Bill H5602, an act relating to taxation, levying assessment of local taxes that would authorize municipalities to offer tax amnesty periods in fiscal year 2024 or fiscal year 2025 for the waiver of interest and penalties on overdue tangible tax payments. Jim or Mike, one of you could sort of brief us on what this entails. Talked a little bit about it in the work session.
It's pretty straightforward. What happens if you don't pay your tangible tax bill on time? The cities and towns impose penalties and interest, and this bill you can't do anything in terms of waiving interest on overdue taxes without getting General Assembly approval. This bill would grant that ability to municipalities to waive interest. It won't mandate it, it will just give you the opportunity to do so if you wanted to.
And Mike, this is specific to tangible tax payments? and we already adopted an ordinance relative to amnesty for real estate tax.
That's different, that's correct. These are tangible, so those would be the taxes that businesses pay on things like computers and desks and inventory, et cetera.
All right, any thoughts on this one?
Talked about it in the work session, we thought we would put it on file.
All right,
Motion to place item 9F on file.
Second?
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No, all right, that passes. It's gonna bring us to item G, a letter dated March 16, 2023, from Stephen J. Ilmazian, Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island, requesting that the town fly the Armenian flag on April 24th to commemorate Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. If Stephen is here, I don't think he is, but I just want to give him the opportunity. No? Jim, you want to talk a little bit about this one?
We have a policy on flying the flag, but we have one flagpole here in front of the town hall. So if permitted by the council, I know that every request has to be approved by the council. It would have to be flown at the police station.
All right,
Consistent with your policy and past practice.
excellent. All right, I'm happy to support this one.
So I'll make a motion to approve 9G.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to applaud the Armenian community for continuing to bring this up so it is not forgotten. It's not as nearly as recognized as the Holocaust, and it is a devastating genocide. And if you know anyone who's Armenian, they often have a very heartfelt story. So I applaud the efforts that they continue to put this forward every year.
Deb?
You got it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. Item H is a resolution adopted March 20, 2023 by the Hopkinton Town Council in support of House Bill H6119, an act relating to human services, medical assistance that would increase the Medicaid reimbursement rates for ambulance and wheelchair van services.
So we talked about it in the work session, and Hopkinton is a volunteer EMS. We have a paid EMS, so the same rules do not apply, but I think that we should support their efforts because they would like to be reimbursed for a Medicaid run at the same rate as a Medicare run, and to me, that makes sense, and I would absolutely get on board.
I agree. It's important to support our medical services, especially in small towns.
All right.
Motion to approve item 9H.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Just go ahead, Mike.
One comment, this one, there is an actual bill. I read it. It seems fine to me, and I support it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item 10, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Council President. There are three items that I will update you. One I will defer to a member of the staff to update, but the first one is the update on the School Building Committee. This past Thursday and the Thursday before that, the School Building Committee met and discussed items related to, what the decision of the council was about a $125 million bond and what type of high school design, where it would be situated. We heard from some residents who live near the Hazard Field would express some concerns about if the high school moved, how would that affect them with noise, with lights, and so forth. But the real, and then they also on the Saturday, they had, a week ago, they had a work session at the high school to get input from the residents about the possible design of this high school. But really it comes down to the referendum and the dates that the council would have to vote on to determine what date works best for the town. Speaking to the clerk, Susan Flynn, there were really two dates that were possible. One was October 3rd of 2023 or November 7th of 2023. That was brought to the attention of the school building committee, and they, I guess they could say, I would say they approved it. We talked about it, and they approved that would be the preferred date, but obviously it has to come to the council. So November 7th gives everyone involved about another 5 weeks to get this to the point where it's on referendum and see where it goes from there with the voters, how they vote. So really, that's the question that will be coming up, October 3rd or November 7th for the referendum.
Need direction right now, Jim?
I think we need it sooner than later, but I would hope to get an answer as soon as possible.
All right, my preference, November 7th.
Me too.
Looks best. I think that aligns with expectations of voters as to when to go to the polls, but.
A couple of questions. Was there a reason for the preference of November over October?
I'll let Luke go over that, but it really came down to timing and getting as much time as we could, for stage 2, but I'll let Luke get into the more specifics on that.
Good evening. So, as Jim mentioned, the building committee did vote to move forward and make a recommendation on November 7th. As you remember, we're not going to be submitting the stage 2 until June 30th. That's our hit date for that document. We figure it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, maybe more, but we're hopeful that we'll get a decision from RIDE before then. So that gives us time from the time we receive the letter for securing the reimbursements to get the word out and information. And also, as anyone knows, people scatter over the summer. So we likely can't get the messaging out on the information of what's going on until kids are back in school. So that gives us more time to get the information, correct information, in the right hands of the voters so they can vote in November. We will have everything set up with the architects. We're working on consultant selection now. So our next meeting is a workshop this coming week. We're going to be working on selecting an owner's project manager. So our intent is to have an architect lined up, an OPM lined up, have the whole consultancy team. So if we get approved for a bond, we'll be able to execute immediately. So there's no issue between an October or a November date.
Okay. 2 other questions. Has anybody been in touch with Greg Amori's office about the scheduling?
No, not yet. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Sue, go ahead.
Susan has.
Susan has.
I have spoken to, I believe, both the Secretary of State's office and the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections is the one that determines what dates elections are held. Those are the 2 dates that they gave me for the fall months. And we would have to send the request to the Secretary of State's office to have the election 50 days prior to the election. So there's a process where the council will have to adopt a resolution requesting the Secretary of State to put the question on the ballot. Then the Board of Canvassers has to certify the question. We have to send that all to the Secretary of State within that time frame.
Last question, you know what I'm going to ask. If it's on November 7th, we're still going to have time to get everything done, assuming it's approved, to meet the December deadline for the 52% reimbursement.
Yes, I'm working directly with RIDE. I'm making sure that we'll get the requirements in so we qualify.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think that November 7th is the correct, the smartest date, because I think people are going to be hearing TV ads about the election for the District 1 rep nonstop, so they'll know to go to the polls on the 7th, so.
That's a good point. I would be remiss if I didn't say that most of the community doesn't rely on the schools to provide the information. You know, there's just a very small school population, 30,000 people, in this town don't. So that wouldn't be the reason to wait to get the schools ramped up, because we got to get the community ramped up anyway. So I think we need to start right away on a communications plan, a messaging plan right away, whatever the date is, because people are going to be a little bit skeptical of any project of this size. So messaging and communication will be important. My biggest concern is on the other side of November 7th, that we can get everything done. If it all goes well, I don't want to have us racing to the finish. I don't know what RIDE's going to consider a signed contract or deal to keep us in the bonus land, for simplest explanation. What do we need?
I can answer you that. So we have to have execution of a contract with the architect and consultancy team. That's what they're going to consider shovels in the ground.
Okay.
And working on our stage 3. So we feel confident that we can do that. If we line everybody up, we would actually have them in pending status until we get an affirmation of the vote. So that 1 month between October and November is not the critical. And Karen Grandy, who is here, she'll be talking to the bond legislation tonight. She could fill you in a little bit on how that typically works, but we feel confident that we won't have an issue.
So just a question about the stage 2 submission. So now, it's now going to be submitted on June 30th. A couple weeks ago, it was mid-June, so it's moving a little bit, and that makes me a little nervous, quite honestly. Is that something that Studio Jade said now has to be June 30th?
We haven't moved it since we've created our master schedule. When we developed that with Phil, we issued that about a month and a half ago.
I thought it was June 15th, that's why.
No, it's that 30th has been held. Phil is committed to that. I mean, obviously, if we can go sooner, part of the issue is between estimating, as you know, schematic design, estimating, and then there's multiple approvals both by the school committee and town council. We could expedite that, but the way we have the schedule laid out is to present to stage 2, then come back for the vote. So if you're so inclined, we did this on the stage 1 to move it forward faster. We could feasibly submit earlier, although not required.
Is your updated schedule on the website?
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Rory, I would just recommend that the actual vote, if you want it November 7th, let's wait till 13C, because the legislation actually has a section 14 with the date. Right now, it says October 3rd or such other date that you may determine. So let's wait till we get to 13C to set that date. Thank you.
And I just want to say that I did go on Saturday. I don't know. I don't think anyone else went, but it was really a great opportunity to have the community actually lay out all the components of the new high school. We worked in teams. It was sort of like paper Legos, and we built schools in different ways and presented them. And so people could get a sense of where should the parking go. And so they got a lot of ideas because there was probably 7 or 8 teams working. And then the second half of the day, we got to look at different renderings of high schools, and then they reported out the school building committee. It was really interesting. So it was a really nice, not super large, there were 50 people there at most, I would say, but I think it was robust in terms of like people feeling like they could put the parking lot here, and then also they kind of played around the same thing, paper Legos with Curtis Corner Athletic Field, so that was kind of neat too. So I think people really got to have a diversity of ideas and have input, so it's up to Phil to figure it out.
And we will have, I talked to Phil today, he did send me the survey, so some of the contents of that meeting will be posted online in survey form. So here's my public service announcement, make sure people are checking back. And if you also want to participate, the images will be on there and you can weigh in on your preferred sort of architectural styles on the high school design.
All right, thank you, Luke. Jim, continue on with the manager's report?
Yes, I'll call Luke up in about 2 minutes, but about a month ago, Councilwoman Bergner asked that we research the South Road School property to see the feasibility of selling it, repurposing it, any restrictions on it. So basically, it came down to, we determined who had ownership, what were the restrictions, the size of the property that's usable or we could sell, the potential, the possibilities, and the cost, just keeping it as is. So, like I said, Luke did a lot of work on this past couple of weeks, so I'll just call Luke up. You can go over this right here and go over any questions the council might have.
So tonight's kind of a high level on where we are. I mean, the property is sat for some time, since '06. The property consists, the lot, as you can see, which is outlined in red, shares a site with Curtis Corner Middle School, and it's 50 acres. So it's a sizable lot. That doesn't necessarily mean that would be what we'd either part with or do something with. That's really up to the council, but it's just to know that that lot would have to be subdivided off in some way if you wanted to keep a portion. The building itself, I was conflicting on information between 1961 and 1964 when it was built. I have a facility condition assessment which was done in 2017 when the inclusionary preschool was at the property that lists 1964, although Mark Russo, our facilities director, had advised that it was earlier than that. So I'll get a firm date on that, but the core building, the old building, is older. There was an addition in 1990 that was added on. So as you can imagine, and with any older building, there's a bit of hair on it. There's some asbestos wrapped pipe. There's, typically with these older buildings, depending on what they've retrofitted, there's PCBs and the caulking and light fixtures and mercury and thermostats, depending on, again, how much retrofitting was done, and it runs the gamut. I know that I disposed of a school several years ago, and we didn't expect it. We did an assessment, and there was asbestos tiles on the roof. That's not to say it will happen here, but sometimes things are hidden. The South Road School building, the assessed value is $4.5 million, and this is all online on the assessment records. Land valuation of the total land area, $3.7 million, so that comes out to a valuation of $72,000 per acre. I throw caution up on these values because typically the assessed values, especially for school facilities, is really high. So people will look at that number and say, well, the school's worth $4.5 million. I can assure you, if we get an appraisal done, it will not be $4.5 million, 100%. I had one done for 140,000 square foot school building not long ago that was in better condition, and it was about $2.1 million. And again, this all goes in the highest and best use and what you can reuse that facility for under current zoning. That leads me into the zoning information. It's zoned government institution, which means that any local, state, URI as in government institution can operate there, including healthcare. But in order to move to anything else, including residential, it'd have to be rezoned. The nearby districts are R10, going up South Road, so to the left and right of that property. So it could feasibly be rezoned to R10, R40, and it could also, under our cottage zoning, under R10, be used in that capacity for a higher density rate. So when we're talking about affordable housing. One thing I do want to raise a red flag on is, as many of you know, there was a Rhode Island general law that was passed recently with regards to vacant school buildings. Now that law doesn't say you have to use that building for affordable housing. What it says is the state can step in and do a feasibility assessment for potential use of housing, get a study done, get an estimate of what it would cost to convert, and essentially help the town put it to market in that capacity. So that is an option. That's a new program. I'm not sure how well that's taken off, but it may be something that, is in your consideration. Did you have something?
Yeah, wasn't there some kind of a circuit breaker in that bill about the town can notify the state that it has plans or it's working on plans?
Now, if you're above the 10% threshold, you can request that they step in and still do a feasibility assessment, but if we're below the 10%, which we are, they can automatically step in and start doing a feasibility study on. So it wasn't really a circuit breaker, it was more for towns if they wanted to participate in the process. I think the intent is to help municipalities dispose of these properties, right? You see what this one's lagged. We're not the only ones. It's having the bandwidth, which you need to have in a planning department or elsewhere as a smaller town, to be able to go through the disposal process, which seems simple, but there's appraisals involved, there's demo assessments involved, quite a bit. So you just have to leg through that process. I guess the general feeling of the state is to move that process along and obviously help affordable housing, which is a priority. This bill tries to achieve that end. So again, it's not something mandatory, but it's something we should be aware of because, if it continues to sit, it may be moved in that direction or persuaded in that direction. Was there another question before I move on?
So about that, I guess, if we were, if the state were to step in, the parcel is It's really not 50 acres. It could be as big or as small as we said. We could say to the state, we're only going to give you this tiny, tiny bit, correct? It's not like
Correct. And
they can't,
the legislation, I would say, is, I'll be so bold to say flawed, because I don't think it really considers redevelopment in full. What it does is it says, all right, we'll look at the building, we'll look at how it could be used, but I don't think it really gets into, all right, what if we demo that building, we look at current zoning and seeing if we could cluster it or do something as higher density. You know, what's the actual, in this case, what's the actual sellable property? And what is it? So there's no compelling language on the community to say, we're going to force you to do this as affordable housing, and this is how you got to do it. So it's a fair point, you know, we still have control over the property, the town owns it. They can't force us to, you know, there's no compelling language in this legislation that I see. And maybe Mike has a different take on it, but, okay.
I mean, and we could choose to develop a very small portion, we could develop a very large, it's our decision.
Yeah, so the building itself, as you can see in the photo with supportive parking and kind of the developed area with the playground, is approximately 7 acres. I put the apportionment of potential sale property as 7 to 14. That's something for the council to decide. Obviously, we would give up some recreational amenities to the east side if we were to pursue additional land area to go with that. What I'd recommend if you choose to move forward is to, having done this in the past, is to do a couple feasibility studies for highest and best use. It also helps the appraisal, because the appraiser will look at it. The highest and best use always is to use the building as is, a school. But the likelihood of a school coming in and buying that building and using it after, I can tell you I have this facility condition assessment from 2017 that says it needed $6 million worth of work, is highly unlikely. So what you really want to give the appraiser is some vision of what could be and what the density could be for that property on a highest best use if it was to be rezoned. Now, that doesn't mean it would necessarily be sellable at that, but it gives developers that potential. You always put the asterisk on it, but it allows the town to get the highest and best value for it, because now the developer has a vision of the potential. And it could be contingent. You can make it contingent on certain approvals, like if they get a rezone approval to R10 and it goes to a cottage type zoning, or they go for a comp permit process. You can put whatever stipulations you want on a sale. You know, the town owns the property, so if you want a playground there, you want something for the town, you can do that as well. It would obviously devalue what you get back, but keep in mind with all these properties, if it goes to a taxable property, even if you gave it to somebody at zero and it gets on the tax rolls, right now it's not generating any income. So once it gets on the tax rolls, the town is in perpetuity, prospectively, going to get value out of that property. So it's just something to think about as you maybe approach this. Utility information, so it's serviced by Kingston Water District. The septic is failing. It's a 10,000-gallon tank underground. It had to be pumped out several times when it was under lease. So that is a consideration if the building was to be reused. It definitely needs to be septic or needs to be connected some way, somehow to sewer, which is not an easy task. With regards to the building itself, there is one leak in the roof currently, but I can tell you with leaks in those buildings, they tend to spider out quickly. As I mentioned, known hazardous materials, there is some asbestos-wrapped pipe. Camera systems are failed. The boilers are actually in decent shape, but all the infrastructure for the boilers is original to the building, meaning 1960. HVAC, there is some partial air conditioning in the building on split duct air units for special education classes, but not the full building. And then obviously the current use is really for storage of the town. We have some, facilities is using it for random storage. Our operational costs right now from July is about $15,000 to date. On average, it averages about 20 to 30, upwards of $40,000 just to sit. So that's something to consider as well. We've had quite a few inquiries on that building to rent or lease it. Most of them have been low-value leases. Typically, the nonprofits or somebody looking to store something for low value, and I don't know if that's going to help our situation to even cover the cost at this point. Does anybody have any questions?
So Luke, if we did want to move forward with the highest and best use study or analysis of the property, does that require any action from the council, or would you have to hire a consultant, or is that done internally?
So it would be something that you'd want to direct the staff and the town manager to pursue. I think one of the, as I mentioned, we'd look to do a few things. Feasibility assessment, we'd have to look at, depending on what it seems to be is this limited amount of hazardous material in the building, right? If somebody's going to take the building down, they also have to carry the prospective cost of taking down the building, right? Building of this size and stature, I would get under to guess $500,000 to $700,000 to take down with a remedial action, depending on the level of that. So we could go for a study to figure out exactly what's in that building. Like you can have a full hazardous building material assessment done, or you can just let it fly to market and say, it's on you, but you may devalue it a little bit. So that would be something we'd have to research further. The schools are required to do asbestos testing and other testing every year. I haven't gotten those reports yet. So I think after we review those reports, we'd determine that. But you'd need an appraisal, and I would say a feasibility study to get that going. And then once we have an appraisal of cost, we can put it to market and see what we get, and then you can compare that to the appraisal. Again, it may not meet the appraisal. Appraisal may say $1.5 million, and somebody offers, $500,000, but they're willing to take the building, knowing that it may get demoed, but they're willing to take the cost of the demo. Then at that point, you can make consideration, is it worth that value of holding the liability? Because once you start demoing that building, if there's more hazardous material, then it's on the town to take care of. So there's all these considerations, but we'll take it step by step if you want to move forward.
All right. Thank you, Luke.
I'm inclined to move this forward. I think it's the community, we hear from the community a lot. It's sat empty and no one's done anything, so I'm inclined to move it along.
Okay. I think this would need specific action from the council to direct the manager and his staff to do. Mike?
This would need to be a resolution on a future council.
Okay. Do we need to do anything?
I don't think so. I think the
I
message
think
is that you would like to see a resolution on an upcoming council meeting with next steps going forward with the study, et cetera.
Yep.
And Luke will have you brief us again on it at a subsequent meeting when we take it up.
Can do.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
So likewise, we might want to begin the same process with Wakefield School, I guess, because at some point it's going to be empty. Did we hear that? It's going to be empty by the end of by 2023 ends? Yes? Do we need to direct you to do that, or will you just?
Mike, the school committee has to take an affirmative vote to take the school offline, right? Have they done that?
Not sure the paperwork has come to you yet.
Okay.
So let's take it one
Okay.
step at a time. Yeah.
All right.
Amen.
Next item, Jim.
So there's one, there's item C, then there's item D, which I just added, which is very quick. So, but C is the reorganization of the agenda. So I've been in this position for about 10 and a half months. There's certain areas I looked at that maybe we could reorganize the agenda to make it more efficient. I looked at North Kingston's agenda, Narragansett and Westerly, just to see how they do it. And there are some recommendations after meeting with the clerk that we could make to the town council. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide if you want to reorganize the agenda and where you would want the items. We're going to save that for a future date to do that, but I'm giving you a copy of the template so you can look at it. I'll go over it real brief with you. The priority of the reorganization would be to get to the business of the town much quicker than we do. We've had some late meetings, and I expect we're going to have more with some of the stuff we're going to be putting on the agenda. And the new business, which is some of the most important business we do, it involves money, contracts. It comes way at the end. One of the last meetings, it started at 11:24 p.m. We had to extend it, and it went to 11:55 with the last member of the staff got up. It's not only we could be rushing some of this stuff, but the directors will have to stay here and wait right till the end, which I think it does have a burnout factor for the directors staying that late, and then they have to drive an hour and a half home to start the day again in the morning. But that's not the real reason. The reason is the business of the town. We need to get to that quicker so that the most important decisions are made right up front. So if you look on the next page, you'll see we reorganized a few things, and we can discuss this more at length when I have a work session on it. But if you could just look at it, this will give you enough time to give me some feedback if it's something you want to pursue. The final thing is we had a Medal of Honor ceremony Saturday. It was a great event. It was a very proud moment for the town. Several members of the council were here. Every elected official in the state was here, a general officer. Our congressional delegation was there. It was a very proud moment for South Kingstown. Joanne Esposito from the 300th Anniversary Committee put a ton of work in this. Sharon Henderson and Matt McCoy. He's a member of the North Kingston Town Council, but he volunteered to do this. He's a veteran himself. This town celebrated 3 Medal of Honor recipients from this town from the Civil War, World War II, and Korea. This medal is the highest medal of valor that the United States will give to a veteran in active role in combat. To put it in perspective, there's only just over 6,000 Medal of Honor recipients in all that time, in all those wars. And South Kingston has 3 of those. There's one other town that has more, and that's a town in Massachusetts that has 5, and there's only a handful in the whole United States that has 3. Even Senator Reed, who was a veteran, sat next to me and couldn't believe how many South Kingston had. We had a flyover scheduled, but because it was raining, they canceled it. But something they did ad lib was they rang all the bells in town. So the church, Mark Russo went in the bell tower and rang our bell here at Town Hall. It was a very proud moment for the town, a very positive moment, and I think it just needs to be recognized. We're gonna redo the downstairs here with the pictures, the wooden plaque, and the proclamation signed by the council president will all be hanging there in the near future. Lastly, Solicitor Ursillo advised me that it might be prudent, Council President, to move 13C up. Our bond counsel is here now from her meeting in East Greenwich. We pay her by the hour. So I think it'd be prudent to bring that up as the next item if you so see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. All right, we'll move over to new business, item 13C. And Mike, can I just read the first paragraph here? Right. So this item reads, a resolution memorializing the General Assembly to enact legislation authorizing the town of South Kingstown to issue not to exceed $125 million general obligation bonds and notes to finance the acquisition, construction, improvement, renovation, furnishing, and equipping of a new high school athletic facility and other school facilities in the town, and all expenses incident thereto, including but not limited to costs of design, demolition, athletic fields, landscaping, and parking, and all attendant expenses, including engineering, architectural, and other project-related consulting costs, provided that the authorization shall be reduced by the amount of certain grants received from state bond proceeds from the Rhode Island Department of Education or from the Rhode Island School Building Authority.
Motion to approve item 13C.
Second.
Yeah, so, yeah, you can put the motion on, but Karen Grandy probably will want to address you.
Karen,
Fine.
come on up.
Good evening. I appreciate you rearranging your agenda. It's not often that I'm asked to be at 2 council meetings at the same time, the same evening. So you have before you the draft legislation, the authorizing resolution. I don't know if you have any particular questions about it, or you just want me to take you through it.
Yeah, you could just speak generally on it, if you could.
Sure, happy to do so. So again, apologies for the very long caption, but over the years there have been enough questions that have come up regarding bond authorizations that they seem to get longer and longer to make sure that every possible thing that someone wants to include in a school bond financing actually is legally included. So this would authorize not to exceed $125 million. If you notice at the last clause of the heading on the resolution, it says that the authorization shall be reduced by the amount of certain grants received from state bond proceeds from the Rhode Island Department of Education or from the School Building Authority. And the intention there is that if you authorize $125 million, so they've made some changes at RIDE over the last few years to the way they used to do things. It used to be the case that you would get school housing aid reimbursement based solely on debt service, and that would become payable once the project was complete. So once they put in the $250 million state bond referendum, RIDE started giving communities a certain amount, a lump of money up front, which they call pay-as-you-go capital. And so when they started doing this, they indicated that they wanted to do it just like Massachusetts. And what Massachusetts does is to reduce the amount of the bond authorization by the amount of the pay-as-you-go capital that you get. So if it was a $125 million authorization and you happened to get $25 million of pay-go money, then that would reduce your authorization to issue bonds from $125 million to $100 million. I hope that makes sense. We discussed, so this is in standard form for South Kingstown legislation and bond legislation. We did have some discussion on the election date, and so currently it provides for October 3rd or another date determined by the council. If you were going to do the October 3rd date, which it sounds like you're not, you wouldn't have to do anything as far as another vote of the council to set the election date. But if you are going to move it to the November date or another date, then you will need to take some action to approve that alternate election date.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
Surely.
Any questions for Karen?
I don't remember that you came the last time we did this. Did you? I mean, we did it by Zoom. No, we did it in person.
I don't think I was asked to come that evening.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
That's okay. I just don't recognize you, so I was like, I know we did this, but.
You're correct. You're correct.
But you weren't here. Okay, no problem.
All right, thank you, Karen.
Can I just ask one question about PAYGO? Is this like petty cash? Like if you were running a business, would you give somebody petty cash to like go buy something and then it would be reduced back? Is that like an easy way to describe it, or am I not understanding what PAYGO is?
So what the state is trying to do is reduce the town's costs by allowing or setting up a structure so that you don't have to borrow as much. So it's the same project, the same amount of project costs. It's just that instead of the town issuing the bonds and then waiting until the project is complete, which is usually 2 years or so, because you don't get debt service under current law. You don't get debt service reimbursed until the fiscal year that the project is actually complete. But meanwhile, you're paying debt service, interest payments on these bonds. So what the state was trying to do was ease some of the strain by giving communities, instead of waiting to pay later, they give it to you up front so you don't have to borrow that money.
Strapped.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Mike, go ahead.
Just a quick question for Mike. Do we need to incorporate an amendment?
Yeah, what I would do is, the motion would be to approve item 13C with the amendment that section 14 of the legislation would read November 7th as opposed to October 3rd.
Right. If you do that tonight, then that obviates the need for doing it at another meeting.
Exactly.
Perfect, yeah.
It's before them tonight, it's on the agenda, it's here, so you might as well send the legislation in with the date they want.
Right, because it hasn't gone up to the State House
No,
at this
it has
point in
not.
time. Correct.
All right.
So Dorald has a question. I don't know if we want to, I mean, I'd like to hear what he has to say before we vote. It doesn't harm anybody.
All right, Dorald, come on up.
Dorald, just on this matter, because my reputation's on the line.
Got it.
Just on this, 2 seconds.
Good evening, Doral Peasley. All right. First of all, I want you to understand that this is not $125 million to build a new high school. It's in actuality only $120 million, because $4 million of this money is going to be used at the present time to knock down the old high school after the new one opens up. And another $1 million is going to be used to remove Curtis Corner School so you can put a new track and football field there. So you're starting out with less than $125 million. Secondly, even at 125, there's no wiggle room. So this, I think, was 123 to 125. That was the number that Studio J came up with it as to what they thought the cost to build the new high school that we were hoping for, considering the cost of construction and materials today. Now, if you've been to, you've heard Mr. Conte speak at a couple of these meetings about how other school districts, he's mentioned Newport a couple of times, went in and submitted a Stage 2 application, was voted on by the voters and approved, but what they found was the inflation hit, materials went up, the shortage of materials, couldn't get materials, so it increased the cost of building what they wanted to build, but actually they ended up not building what they wanted to build. They had to cut things out of it. Now, the last thing that I want to see happen here is that we come to a point in this process where the school building committee is told, well, we're going to have to cut back. So what are you going to cut back? First of all, the last time I heard a square footage number was 140,000 square feet. I don't think that's a big enough building, but let's say it's 140. So what happens if you need more money? Well, you either have to reduce square footage or you have to decrease the quality of some of the materials and things you put in the building. I don't think this is going to be a hard sell for the town. I think the will of the people is out there that they want a new high school. We can't go without a new high school. We're spending, in this coming 24 budget, we have $4.8 million going out to other school districts for students, and about half of that is in the high school area. We have to build a new high school, and it has to be the best high school we can possibly make. I think the decision that you made when you decided to cap it at 125 was not a good one because, first of all, anything above the 125, between the 125 and the 150, those would have gone to other schools. They would have been earmarked for the other schools, but then if you would have needed any of that money to finish the high school, you would have had something to draw from.
Dorald.
Okay, one more minute. So the additional 25 million, you would have gotten a 50% on that for sure, because it was designated for other schools. So you would have gotten 50% reimbursement for those, where you're not going to get it for the high school because the cost of construction now and materials is way above what the ride is going to give us. I'm just thinking that I think it needs to be postponed till the next meeting, so you can maybe get some more information from Studio Jade to make sure that $125 million is going to do what you want.
Thank you. All right. So, right now we're considering taking up what's here with the amendment to consider a change in the date for the referendum from October 2 to November 7. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion, so moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Karen. All right, it's now going to bring us to item 11, public comments, or as formerly known as comments from interested citizens. At this point, I invite anyone who wishes to speak on any subject to come on up. I just ask that you first introduce yourself, and we're going to try to limit you to 3 minutes.
Hello, Town Council. My name is Stephen Dahl. Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Dahl, D-A-H-L. I live in Kingston. I direct a group called Rhode Islanders for Safe Technology. Jamie Orr, who is here and has a disability, would like me to read a short statement for her. Then I'll give my own testimony. Here is Jamie Orr's testimony.
Sir, we're not going to allow you to read testimony from others.
Because we already have that. We already have.
No, you don't have what this is different than what you have.
We ask that you send testimony of others to us, and that you keep your comments here limited to what you have to say to us.
Well, regarding that, Jamie Orr's request to relocate the site and her testimony to the Governor's Commission on Disabilities, which were delivered to the Town Council before deadline, did not show up on the agenda under correspondence, as is the protocol, which is why I would like to read for her tonight. Will you please reconsider?
So if you wish for it to be on the agenda, we can add it for the next meeting. We can have her show up and speak to the matter personally if she wishes to.
She is here. She gets disoriented. I can explain about her disability if you let me speak.
So,
I-
Mr. Dahl?
Yes, please.
Just for a point of reference, in the past, people have come up and we say they have 3 minutes and they begin to read and read and read. So since we already have this and we will read this, is there new, because we're just trying to make sure that the public comment doesn't go beyond the 3 minutes.
Right.
So that's why we're trying to give you different information other than this.
What I have is different than that.
Okay.
So if you find differently, then let me know. On February 6th of this year, the Maverick Corporation, a subcontractor for AT&T Mobility, is that what you have? Okay. Began an unannounced installation of 4G LTE cell site less than 100 feet from the front of my home on 198 South Whedon Road. There was no prior notice to me or other Blackberry Hill residents, no public notice, no public discussion, and no local decision-making. From the beginning of this process, I have been fully cognizant of the town's position. In fact, it's exactly the government's unwillingness on both a municipal and state level to exert any authority that is a major part of the problem. Knowing this, my goals from the beginning have been threefold. One, to highlight the danger wireless communication poses not only to myself in this individual circumstance, but to the broader community of people, some of whom already know they are reactive to electromagnetic frequencies, and others who do not yet understand the full scope of the problem. Two, to fulfill my right as an individual citizen to be heard in a public forum by the elected representatives who serve my community, and to create a public record of my dissent. I realize that it may be difficult to know how many complaints on any given topic are actually received by the town, if they are, in any way, kept from the public agenda. Three, to expose the unwillingness of a town like South Kingstown or a state like Rhode Island to exercise autonomy and control within its own borders in the face of powerful outside interests who do not have the same investment in the personal safety of their customers as governments do in their citizens. In this specific case, it is the wireless telecommunications industry. Additionally, as a result of this experience and the imminent threat to remaining in my home, I want to serve as a warning about the improbability of individuals, renters, and homeowners alike being able to resist the forced implementation of smart meters on their home locations by powerful electric companies. In closing, thank you for considering this matter. Jamie Orr. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I now give my presentation as I am a different person than she is for just 3 minutes?
All right, sir. I do want to give others an opportunity to speak, so we'll ask you to come back up.
This is lovely. I haven't. What's that? Mr. Doral, would you like to Doral Beasley? Would you like to speak with me on this matter? Thank you. You're very kind.
Sir.
Appreciate your
We ask
comments.
you to keep the communication with us.
Of course, sir.
We have a certain way of running this area of the meeting. Generally what we do is we allow people to come up, speak for a certain amount of minutes, and then we ask for others who wish to speak as well. We don't want one individual to sort of go over that, take control of the microphone, and sort of dissuade others from coming up.
I also am electrosensitive, and it affects me in various ways. I wanted to get it over with as quickly as possible and help you get past this as well. May I please just have 3 minutes?
All right, we'll give you the 3 minutes for your segment now. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. This is a picture of a small cell. What this means is that a cylinder which houses antennas sits atop the utility pole. It looks like a big can. There is also a large metal box on the utility pole which powers it, and a smart meter. This is the view from Jamie's living room. You can see the small cell right here from her window. This is no mere concern. Her proximity to the small cell infrastructure escalates the pollution it emits, making it a health hazard. The vast rollout may bring a small cell installation close to your home as well. What makes Jamie Orr unique is that she understands the radiation is toxic and that it will affect her health. Indeed, the town of South Kingstown has recognized her disability for over 25 years during her employment as teacher in the South Kingstown School Department. The disability, present at birth, is well documented. Her disability is essentially invisible, but it causes serious auditory, visual, olfactory, kinesthetic anomalies in her sensory system, which includes electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Like an allergy, or more accurately, a poison, peer-reviewed medical science shows toxic microwave radiation causes a wide range of symptoms and damage in individuals. The FCC safety standards governing wireless radiation are outdated and ignore biological harm to humans, pets, and wildlife. In 2021, the FCC was remanded by a U.S. appeals court and told to look at the voluminous evidence they'd ignored regarding biological harm. The FCC isn't doing its job, according to Harvard's Center for Ethics, and is instead a captured agency doing the bidding of telecoms it's supposed to be regulating. This important conundrum leaves the matter to states and municipalities. 4G and 5G are brand names for rollouts. In November 2020, New Hampshire commissioned to study the environmental and health effects of evolving 5G technology, released its final report to Governor Sununu, expanding the report to cover all radio frequency radiation, not just 5G. The majority supported 15 recommendations, including that New Hampshire schools and libraries replace Wi-Fi with safer wired connections and support the deployment of fiber optics to give wired broadband to homes, which is more secure and faster than Wi-Fi and uses far less electricity. The Commission recommended requirements for setbacks for new wireless antennas from residences, schools, and businesses, and the engagement of agencies to develop radio frequency radiation safety limits to protect trees, plants, birds, insects, and as well as the establishment of radiation-free zones. What Jamie needs is one of these zones here in South Kingstown. Think of it as a non-smoking zone. Our zoning department can do this. We need your help. I formally request that the town council put small cell zoning on the next town council agenda and alert the zoning committee. There is international opposition to the rollout. In Italy, for example, 260 municipalities, including Florence and Rome, oppose 5G.
Sir, you are a little bit over.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll just wrap it up. And here's a town resolution against 5G. Here's a municipal code checklist. Thank you so much for your assistance in this important matter. And you can learn more by going to the June 28, 2021 Town Council Agenda Archives online, where you can access the video presentation of Credentialed Technology Safety Coordinator CC Doucette. And I'll give you those right here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
May I approach the...
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to come up and speak on any matter they wish to? I invite you to come on up.
Okay, excuse me, before my time starts, I just have to ask a question. So I sent in an email to the town council, not individually, the universal email, on the 13th. And I didn't see it in communications on tonight's agenda.
Oh, Doral, we might have took that up at the last meeting, and you weren't here to address it.
The 13th? When's the last time you met?
I guess that wouldn't be possible. Never.
We met on the 13th.
We had a communication item from you, Doral, on an agenda.
That was about,
You were at a school committee
that was
meeting
about
with-
that was about affordable housing. That's the one I was at the school committee meeting that night. This is not about affordable housing.
You want it on the agenda for the next meeting? We can do that.
So is there an editing of the agenda items that come by email?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking to the universe. So,
Because I sent this to the town council,
so
town
you
manager, and Mr. Ursillo
you
on the 13th.
modify the
May I
charter?
ask, is this the one on the school board vacancies?
Yes. That's the one.
Yes.
Sent to the
Yep, we have it.
It was sent to the council.
Did it specifically request that it be on an agenda?
No.
Because we received lots of emails with respect to that subject. If we allowed every single one on the agenda, it would be too voluminous.
Well, I think he actually is asking, this should be on the agenda. He wants to start modifying how the school committee vacancies are filled by scheduling a public hearing on modifying the charter. So it was received on Tuesday, March 14th at 10:28 a.m. So there is an ask, which would qualify it to be on the agenda.
So do you want it on the next one, Doral?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, all right, so then I'll get to my last thing. Affordable housing. So as it stands right now, we have South Ward School, 35,000 square feet. That's on the town rolls. We have Curtis Corner, 100,000 square feet. It's going to go offline in June. We have Wakefield School for another 35,000 square feet that's going offline next January. And then when the high school is completed, the new high school, if the plan goes as it is right now and it's built on School Street, the existing South Kingston High School of 235,000 square feet is going to be open. So in total, it's 405,000 square feet of empty schools. We need to have a conversation here in this town about what kind of community we want to be if we are going to spend $5 million to destroy 235,000 square feet of the South Kingston High School and another $1 million to knock down the other 100,000 of Curtis Corner when we desperately need affordable housing. Now, you already heard by Mr. Murray, legislation was passed last year that will help cities or help towns that are not meeting the 10% goal to convert abandoned schools. Okay, but you have to remember something. The 10%, we're only at 5.4% or 5.5% now. We only added like 30 some, in the last decade, we went from like 5.2 to 5.6%. But remember, the 10%, that's the minimum. That's the minimum percentage of affordable housing that you're supposed to have in your towns. So when we hit 10%, if and when we ever hit 10%, we're still not we still don't have enough. Here are, I'm almost done. Here were two articles that just came out within the last week and a half. Here's one. Home ownership by young households below pre-Great Recession levels. And the other one, low-income renters spent larger share of their income on rent in 2021. We have, in last year's school information, there were 11 students in South Kingstown that were listed as homeless. We have to do better. We can't keep talking about it. We can't keep saying, oh, we'll have another study. Here we have an opportunity, 405,000 square feet, to turn those into affordable housing for people that want to live here, and want to work here. How many times have you heard people come up here and say, my grandkids, they live in Warwick now because they can't afford to live here. Our land prices are astronomical. That's where the issue is. Whatever land's left to actually build on is so expensive. When my wife and I built our home in 1977, 5 years earlier, we purchased our half-acre land from the Kingston Fire District for $7,200, and we paid it. 30 seconds. So we paid it off over the next 5 years, and we used that for our down payment. Today's land prices, for that half acre now, you probably have to pay $125,000 if you can find it. How many kids, how many young families can afford $125,000 just to buy a piece of land to build a house on? They can't. Please, I'm going to send you an email tomorrow asking you to reopen the community conversation on affordable housing and not to destroy those school buildings.
Thank you, Doyle. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to come on up? Anyone? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. All right, that's going to bring us to item 12, appointments. We'll start here with item A. We had a few interviews tonight for a few boards and commissions. If anyone's inclined to make a resolution supporting them?
Make a resolution to reappoint Christine Chapman to the Board of Canvassers.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. We also had an interview for another individual as an alternate.
Mrs. Klezak.
Yep.
For the Assessment Board of Review. I don't know her first, I can't remember her first name. Mary? Is it Mary? Alice. Remember the
Very
last?
patiently
And she
still
stayed
here.
all night.
Motion to appoint Alice Klezak to the Assessment Board of Review.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes. Congrats.
Bef-
Yep, go ahead.
Just, Jim, just before we move on, are we meeting with the planning board soon, or is that, because we've had a lot of talk about housing, and that was something that, do you know when that's coming?
It's not on the schedule.
Okay.
We've got a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, it is something we need to talk about at some point, but I do not have it on the schedule.
Okay.
Possibly sometime soon after the enactment of the budget. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. It's going to bring us to appointment B here. To consider appointing someone to the school committee vacancy.
So I want to kick off the discussion here. We got a ton of emails this week. While I'm not necessarily opposed to any of the remaining candidates, it seems to me that the political convenience of Mr. Martin's withdrawal is pretty obvious. As evidenced by the number of emails I received this week, the optics of this has not been lost on the public. Just the mere lack, the illusion of a lack of transparency is something that does not align with my beliefs. As such, I'll be abstaining from this vote. I hope that in the future, going forward, we have a more transparent process. Many people suggested in their emails that we use a rubric that's available to the public. I hope that's something that we can think of in the future, but right now, the way that things happened, I'm going to abstain.
I'd like to say something. So it does feel like this got worked out somewhere out of the camera's view. It feels like we're going backwards instead of forwards. For me, it's the thing that makes people lose confidence in the local government and their elected officials. We nominated someone last week that had been involved, had spoken up at multiple times, has been consistently part of the community conversation, and that vote failed 2-2. I guess I always think that we should include diverse opinions at the table because groupthink can be very dangerous. I think groupthink we witnessed in the previous bond efforts where people were afraid to make a stand, push for creativity, push for better solutions, and so we had a failed and we restarted the process. I think that you can see that in lots of other ways with how groupthink is unethical. People feel pressure to acquiesce to the group. They don't feel comfortable speaking up. So I do think having a diverse viewpoint is a good thing. It shouldn't be about political party to me. It should be about who can serve and who, and we should work to be above that. I always say all the time, we're neighbors. We see each other at soccer or at the grocery store. I mean, it happens all the time. And you look at the person for who they are, a person, a member of the community. And so I just feel like this is a disappointing experience. I interviewed all 5 people. I think they were all excellent candidates and could serve in many ways. And it's a big commitment to be on the school committee. I really hope the talented people that spoke 2 weeks ago will continue to be involved. They have a lot of skills, like I said, that could contribute to the project and to the community. And I also am going to abstain from this vote.
All right. I'll keep my discussion on focus to the actual issue here of filling the vacancy. We did interviews of 5 excellent candidates, and one candidate caused a conflict with one of our council members. That one candidate has since withdrawn his application to allow the council to cast a vote by the full body. So I'm sort of a little concerned to see 2 abstentions as a result of bringing one of our council members back in to allow for a vote, which puts a seat on to cover that vacancy. But that is what it is. With respect to the candidates, my top 2 before were Andrew Holt and the candidate that had withdrawn his application. Now my top 2 are Andrew Holt and Brad Shear. I think they both demonstrate a great aspect of leadership with respect to their abilities to run companies, founding companies, running not-for-profit organizations, working within tight constraints as to tight allotments of money and driving results within that. I think that is something that'll be very translative when it comes to deciding on school committee matters. And one of the biggest issues they work with is working to find a good school budget that creates outcomes for the students. So, in no particular order, those are the 2 I feel most comfortable with, but I'm sad to see 2 council members abstentions. I don't see any need for that. I believe they've acknowledged that all 5 candidates or applicants do bring good qualities to the table. I don't see a need for 2 abstentions here, but that is what it is.
First, to give this some context, I didn't ask Mr. Martin to put his name in. When he did, transparency requires the Ethics Commission rules required me to withdraw because he has a business relationship with me. I stepped back, let the process play out. 2 members of the council offered 2 names. 2 members of the council, the abstainers, offered 1 name. The only person who mentioned anything about politics in this process was Councilwoman Bergner. When it became obvious that there was a deadlock and there wasn't going to be any further discussion, I spoke with the solicitor's office about submitting a request to the Ethics Commission, which is required by law, to proceed under what's called the rule of necessity. When there's a deadlock, the Ethics Commission has a process for resolving it when there's a conflict. I spoke with Mr. Martin about this. Mr. Martin understood the situation, and he, on his own volition, said he would withdraw. That eliminated the conflict of interest, which allows for a full vote. So, it's unfortunate, it's very unfortunate that this has now devolved into mudslinging. Moving on. I'm going to follow.
I don't think we need to be
Let
I don't
finish.
think you need to mansplain anybody, and I didn't.
Mansplaining anything.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
The public doesn't know what you're doing. In any event, I'm going to perform my duty. After the withdrawal, I went back and looked at the interviews that took place. I listened again to the discussions that were had by my colleagues on the night of the 13th. I also reviewed the paper submissions by the different applicants. My judgment, and some of this comes from being a former member of the school committee, I have a fairly good idea of the personalities at play and the issues that face the school committee right now. The most significant challenge of which is declining enrollment, decreases in state aid funding that are coming at us in the coming years, the budget constraints that we've just been through, building maintenance issues, and structuring education to meet students' needs for the 21st century. In addition to all of that, we have a $125 million bond issue for the building of a new high school. Communication is going to be a very key component for the school committee. The school committee should be the people leading this charge to get us a new high school. For that reason, my assessment was that Andrew Holt, who's here tonight, was, of the remaining candidates, the best candidate to fit on the school committee. Depending on how the remainder of the council feels, I think Mr. Scheer also is very well qualified to serve on the committee.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, so I'm just going to call it like I see it, like I experienced the interviews the other night sitting behind here. And something that we all discussed was that we observed that Mr. Martin had his eyes closed for much of the interview process. This was between like 6 and 7:30 p.m. We did note, it's a very different perspective when you're sitting behind the bench because you can see what everybody is doing. He did have his eyes closed, and that was a concern. And that is a concern that we did all discuss. So I'm not really sure why there is, sort of a feeling that this is not something that was above board. I'm really disappointed to hear that. I've talked with a lot of people. I went through my emails and sort of looking at what people were directing me to do. And I heard very clearly a preference from voters against Mr. Petrucci and for either Brad or Mr. Hall or Holt. I got 26 emails to that effect. I received 7 in favor of Alex. I think that's a really clear mandate from the voters, and I believe that's what I was elected to do. So, and Brad Shear, what I heard, a complaint about Andrew Holt was that he was from out of town, and Brad is from the town. And so I was hopeful that he could be like a compromise candidate, given the fact that I know that although the entire council has not received 26 emails that I have received, I know we've received a lot of support in favor of Brad because he does live in town and he's been very involved in in the process over the years. So I was hoping we could compromise on that. I also agree that Mr. Holt is a great candidate because of his communication background. I think that is a real lack. I think we need to have a positive social media footprint. We need to not have a bunch of stuff that we've said about voters in the past online. I've received, things that have been said before that are just not statesmanlike. And for that reason, this is where I'm at.
So I'd just like to address the fact that we noted Mr. Martin sleeping during the work session, and yet you nominated him, both of you, and that was your choice. So for sequencing.
Okay.
Right? That's not the backroom deal part, but that's the optic, that when you're like, I don't understand, he was sleeping, but you knew that ahead of time, and you still chose him.
And I came to realize that was the wrong decision, but not that I was going to recuse myself or accuse Mike of untoward behavior, or that, we were making this decision behind the scenes, because we all talked about it.
All right. So considering that there will only be 3 votes casted tonight, Mike, does there have to be only 2?
That's correct.
All right. All right. So it appears that there is a consensus that the top 2 is Andrew Holt and Brad Shear. Brad Shear does have a little more longevity in the town. Andrew Holt is a little more new to town. I think he's lived in town for about 3 years. Brad Shear may have a little more involvement, but they do have comparable experience as far as leadership in organizations, one leading not-for-profits, one leading private companies. I think either one will mesh well and be able to get their foot in the door and feet moving fast when they take gear. So I'm open to either one. So what do we think?
I'll move to appoint Mr. Holt to the school committee.
All right. Do we hear a second? And Mike, if there's no second, what happens then?
Nominations don't require seconds. You can ask if there are any other nominations.
All right. Is there any other nominations?
I nominate Brad Shear.
So the procedure now would be to, if there are no others, right, there are 2 nominations now. Assuming there are no others, you would vote on each nomination in the order of nomination.
All right. And we can talk about it before we take it. All right. 2 nominations on the table. An affirmative vote requires 2 of 3. Do you want to consider Brad Shear for purposes of unanimity? He's been in town longer. You want to remove your vote? Oh, sorry, your appointment? All right, let's take it. We'll start with Andrew Holt. Susan, can you take the roll? Or could we choose which one to start with? Mike?
I just want to say publicly for everyone that a member of the council advised someone to withdraw their application from the school committee so that they could vote on the matter. It just seems crazy,
That statement is incorrect.
just crazy. He said it. He talked to Joe.
Your normal procedure is to, whether, for any type of election or candidate, is to start with whoever was nominated first. It's not a Robert's rule, it's just the procedure you've always followed. So I would start with Arnold Holt.
All right, let's take the roll.
Okay. This is a motion to appoint Andrew Holt to the school committee. Councilwoman Bergner.
Abstain.
Council Vice President Marin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Alley.
Nay.
Councilwoman Rose.
Abstain.
Council President McEntee.
Nay.
The vote fails 2-1 with 2 abstentions.
All right, Susan, we'll now take the roll call for Brad Shear.
Councilwoman Bergner.
Abstain.
Council Vice President Marin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Alley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rose.
Abstain.
Council President McEntee.
Aye.
The motion carries 3 in favor, 2 abstentions.
All right, thank you, Susan. All right, that's going to bring us to item 12C, where we take up the appointment of the municipal court and housing court judge. Do I hear a motion?
Make a resolution appointing Susan Perkins as municipal court judge.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a question. What would you advise with respect to the alternate or backup?
So, no matter what, I would have 2 separate motions. So let's vote on this, and then if you want to put in place an alternate, you could do that with a second motion. And it will be clear that the alternate would only fill in terms of conflicts or times when whoever you appoint is not available for whatever reasons.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes unanimously. All right, it's going to bring us to new business. Item 13A, a resolution authorizing an award of contract to Stryker Medical Corporation of Chicago, Illinois for one Stryker Power Pro XT MTS stretcher in an amount not to exceed $27,691 as further described in a memorandum from the Chief of Emergency Medical Services to the Town Manager dated March 21, 2023.
Motion to approve 13A.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that motion passes. It's going to bring us to item 13B, a resolution authorizing an award of contract to Curious Systems Incorporated of East Greenwich, Rhode Island for the purchase of judicial case management systems, associated online payment system hardware, setup and training pursuant to the Town Code, Chapter 6 Finance, Article 2 Purchasing, Section 6-26 Miscellaneous Requirements, Subsection A, exclusive service in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for a 3-year term, as further described in a memorandum from the Director of Administrative Services to the Town Manager dated March 22, 2023.
Motion to approve 13B.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
I believe this is a sole source. Is that correct? Yeah, it's a sole source. It's very specific to municipal court, and there were not a lot of options.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, that passes. And that will bring us to the end here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All right, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No? All right, this meeting is over. Thank you, everyone, for coming.